Chapter 2382. Dustless, Kuan. Hearing this form of address, Wu Chen's eyes twitched slightly. He stepped on Corey's head, and the cold air emitted from his indifferent gaze seemed to be able to freeze the air. The temperature suddenly dropped to the freezing point. Make it clear to me. I'm not familiar with you guys. This form of address isn't something you can casually use, Dustless said coldly. That voice was like ice, and it was so cold that Corey could only shiver. I understand. Of course, of course. Corey quickly changed his words. His voice was filled with endless fear. Now that he was chopped into pieces, he would definitely be finished if he continued to provoke Dustless. But this time, you're really lucky. You guessed it right. Dustless suddenly changed the topic and said indifferently, I know that Ikane Sakari and that Twilight person aren't good people either. If you work with them, the vampire will be eaten sooner or later. In the end, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. The Twilight people's ambition was to become the king of the world. An existence like the vampire was too much of an eyesore. Once they obtained or successfully researched the Seraph of Terminus, the first person they would deal with would be Dustless, followed by the vampire. Hee, you're right. Corey didn't comment and smiled embarrassedly. If that's the case, we can be considered as people in the same camp, friend. Bang! Hearing that, Dustless's eyes turned cold. He kicked out and Corey's head flew out. He was caught off guard and ate a mouthful of soil. Mind your tone, my friend. That kind of thing is too redundant for me. Dustless said coldly. Not to mention a vampire like Corey, even Si Tianli, the leader of the Emperor Ghost Army, didn't dare to talk to Dustless like this. Oh, what an unreasonable guy. Corey was rather distressed, but his mentality was good. He quickly felt relieved and pursed his lips, but there's no doubt that we're in the same camp. Hearing this, Dustless remained silent, his cold eyes quietly looking at Crowley. How about this? Dustless, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. It just so happens that those two idiots are not pleasing to the eye. You vampires, take care of Twilight Man and Ice Honren for me. Of course, no problem. Without even thinking about it, Crowley immediately agreed to Dustless's conditions. He was a smart person and knew that this was a transaction. Dustless must have promised them some benefits. As for that Saito, Dustless's bored face was filled with anticipation. He said with interest, to be honest, I've been very bored recently. Let's treat the cheating as a toy to pass the time. I hope he won't disappoint me. After saying that, Dustless lazily left. He didn't need to say anything else, as long as that guy called Saito appeared, Crowley would inform him. That guy is really outrageous. He actually dared to treat the second ancestor as a toy. Chapter 2383. Toy. Hearing Crowley's disdainful explanation, Freed fell silent unexpectedly. He had interacted with Dustless before, so he had some understanding of this guy's temperament. Perhaps it was just as Crowley had said, that Dustless disdained killing two people and felt that it would dirty his hands. Although Toru Twilight was a lieutenant general and a member of the Sea family, he had been taught a lesson by Dustless too many times. He was often beaten up in front of many members of the Imperial Ghost Army, which made him lose face. Therefore, Toru Twilight hated Dustless to the core. To put it bluntly, the world might think that Toru Twilight's mortal enemy was the vampires, but that was not the case. If the Seraph of Termination's research was successful, the first test subject would definitely be Dustless. No matter what should we do next? Crowley looked at Freed. He and this guy were in the same faction, so all he needed to do was to follow orders. There was no need to ask about anything else. Is there a need to ask? Of course, we will collude with Dustless. Freed immediately agreed and smiled proudly. The second ancestor, Saito. No, to be precise, the clash between our father and Dustless. Do you think it will be exciting? Of course. Crowley nodded in agreement and scratched his head. But, it seems that we have no chance of interfering in that kind of battle between monsters. The moment we appear, we will be killed. I know, right? So, let's just watch quietly. Freed shrugged, not feeling embarrassed. Suddenly, his eyes flashed and he sneered. But the basis of our cooperation is that we kill Toru Twilight and Ike's Honrin. We can't afford to offend a big shot like Dustless. If that's the case, we can only let them die. Where did you go? As soon as he returned to the territory of the Emperor Ghost Army, Dustless was stopped by a little ghost. This kid was quite young and was wearing the exclusive uniform of the Emperor Ghost Army. He was quite handsome and had two big eyes that were bright and full of spirit. However, his tone was full of all kinds of unkind and even had a kind of questioning tone. He had an imposing manner. This kid was not an outsider. He was also a member of the Imperial Ghost Army, Hyakuya Yuichiro. Kid, are you talking to me? Dustless looked around and realized that there was no one else around. He looked around and realized that he was the only one here. Dustless looked at Hyakuya Yuichiro in confusion. He didn't know what he was trying to do. Are you doing this on purpose? Hearing this, Yuichiro was furious. He felt that he was being looked down upon. Who else could it be other than you? However, Dustless's reply left Yuichiro dumbfounded. I don't have time to play house with you. Get lost. Dustless didn't say much, he only gave Yuichiro this sentence. Are you looking down on me? Seeing this, Yuichiro glared at him. Dustless's cold eyes didn't have the slightest emotion. He felt that he wasn't respected at all. It was as if he was looking at an ant. I do look down on you, Dustless didn't hide it and said bluntly, you want to question me and even want to know where I went? Tell me, who do you think you are? Yuichiro was just an ordinary soldier. Dustless, on the other hand, was a real general. This kid wanted him to report to him. He must be dreaming. You. Hearing this, Yuichiro was so angry that he gritted his teeth. However, he couldn't refute. Not to mention him, even his superior, Akito Ike's, was a nobody in Dustless's eyes. I know why you are blocking my way. Dustless suddenly lowered his head and looked at Yuichiro. He guessed, let me guess. You want to know if I have any news about Byakuya Michael, right? Humph, you broke into the vampire's camp alone. There must be some important information. Our Emperor Ghost Army is about to go to war with the vampires. It will be beneficial for us to know more information. Hyakuya Yuichiro retorted with a flushed face. He looked at Wu-chin with an open and candid look. TSK, this is a perfect lie. Dustless clicked his tongue and then laughed evilly. Oh, is that so? I forgot to tell you. That vampire called Byakuya Michael was cut into pieces by me. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. The moment Wu-chin finished his sentence, Yuichiro Hyakuya instantly turned hostile. His breathing became faster and more exaggerated. His eyes were bloodshot and his eyeballs were completely red. Swish 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 swish. Yuichiro didn't show any mercy. He raised his ghost curse equipment and slashed towards Dustless's Achilles heel. Seems like I guessed correctly. Wu-chin smiled proudly. As for the oncoming saber light, he completely ignored it. Clang clang clang. Just as the blade was about to hit Dustless, a black shadow rushed over and blocked the tachi easily, intercepting Yuichiro's attack. Xiaoya, get out of my way. I am going to tear this guy apart. Yuichiro's eyes were spitting fire when he saw Xiaoya blocking his attack. He wanted to burn her alive. TSK, how scary. Wu-chin maintained an elegant smile all along. He raised a finger and said lazily, "You want to kill me with this kind of trash? Forgive me for being blunt, but using a finger to deal with you is unnecessary. You are too weak. Fight me to the death if you have the guts." Yuichiro roared crazily. His blood-red eyeballs were about to fall out. It was eerie and scary. It was all because of Michael, this special family member. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Hearing this, Yuichiro remained silent. He knew about Dustless's strength. Even if they had never fought in a life-and-death battle, Dustless's nickname, the Golden Reaper, was given to him by the vampires. It was enough to show how much the vampires were afraid of him. A race that was afraid of a human, it was enough to show how unfathomable Dustless was. You're already in your teens, and you still don't know anything. Your age. Don't tell me you've been living like a dog all this time. Ice Onrin students are really bad. Dustless muttered to himself. Yuichiro's face was blank, and he didn't seem to understand what Dustless was talking about. But I saw Michael being killed with my own eyes. Yuichiro said stubbornly. He's indeed dead. Dustless nodded and couldn't deny it. He replied, as a human, that guy is indeed dead. However, he's no longer a human, but, at this point, Dustless showed a hint of schadenfreude. You still don't understand, right? That kid's nature has changed, from a human to your favorite vampire. Boom boom boom. These words were a blow to Yuichiro. His whole body was like a statue, and he didn't move at all. Nonsense, how can a human become a vampire? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? Yuichiro was stunned for a moment before he said angrily. No, you've got it wrong. A 3-year-old kid's IQ is higher than yours. Dustless said. Even though Yuichiro was 15 or 16 years old, he could be very childish sometimes. Among the vampires, there are some special existences, nobles. After drinking their blood, humans will change and become vampires. Don't you think it's hard to believe? Actually, that's the truth. Some vampires were humans a long time ago, but because they drank the blood of their ancestors, they became vampires. Wu Chen said tirelessly. He glanced at the petrified Yuichiro and said faintly, "Do you understand now? That kid, Michael, has become a vampire. So, what's your choice?" When he spoke up to hear, a mischievous smile appeared on Wu Chen's face. His glowing eyes were like a venomous snake that emitted a dim gray light, causing others to shudder. Your most beloved friend suddenly became your archenemy, hee, isn't this interesting? Dustless's smile became even more evil. Haikuya Yuichiro's head was buzzing non-stop. He was very excited when he heard that Haikuya Michael was still alive. However, he fell silent when he heard that he had become a vampire. He was quite conflicted and didn't know how to face Haikuya Michael. He had always wanted to eliminate all the vampires. Now that his family member had suddenly become a vampire, it was a big blow to him. Yuichiro. At this time, Yuichiro Haikuya's friends also came. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2385. Without a doubt, the so-called gang of scoundrels referred to his teammates. No matter where he was, they would circle around him like flies. Perhaps this was the so-called protagonist's aura. His charisma was infinitely magnified. His strength is average, but he's quite popular. Dustless said calmly. He glanced around and saw the 3 mistresses, 3 Leaves, Jun Tsukasa, Yui Chizaui, and even Sasuke Xiaoya. Of course, at least he's more popular than someone like you. Yuichiro Hyakuya looked at the crowd and felt relieved. He had suffered a blow from Dustless. Fortunately, there was someone to help him recover his health. He lifted his gaze and gently looked at the few people who had rushed over. Then, he stared at Chua Xiaoya and swept his gaze over her. However, his brows furrowed slightly. This is interesting. Seems like it's worse than I thought. Dustless also noticed Yuichiro Hyakuya's frown. He suddenly understood something and smiled. Dustless and Sasuke Xiaoya had a good relationship. After all, the two of them had known each other for many years. Dustless even gave Sasuke Xiaoya some pointers. However, this was equivalent to offending Yuichiro Hyakuya. He hated Dustless very much. Hence, he was more resistant to Sasuke Xiaoya. Sometimes, he would even disobey some orders. Of course, after knowing that Dustless almost killed Michael Hyakuya, Yuichiro Hyakuya's hatred for Dustless deepened. In addition, Yuichiro Hyakuya's relationship with the three mistresses and three leaves was also very bad. The two of them were like natural enemies. Whenever they met, there was no need for others to instigate them. Are you an idiot? Are you tired of living? Do you know who you are talking to? If you want to die, don't drag us down with you. The three mistresses and three leaves were shocked and angry when they saw Yuichiro Hyakuya provoking Dustless. Wasn't this playing with fire? Wasn't this pushing them into a fire pit? Who was Dustless? He was the only invincible general in the Supreme Ghost Army. He was regarded as an invincible legend. Over the years, he had been fighting everywhere, killing vampires. Because of Dustless's appearance, the number of vampires had decreased sharply, and they were no longer as arrogant as before. There was no doubt about Dustless's strength, but now, Yuichiro was provoking such a big shot. What kind of behavior was this? What a typical brain-dead retard. Sir Dustless, I'm sorry, but this guy's head is abnormal. Please don't lower yourself to his level. Although we are in the same team, this guy is like a child who hasn't grown up. The three palaces and three leaves ran to Dustless and bowed in apology. There was a trace of fear in their voices. Don't worry about it. Wuchen just smiled gently when he heard this, and then he waved his hand and said with relief, I know that this fellow's head isn't normal, so don't worry. He won't go so far as to vent his anger on all of you over such a trivial matter. Phew, the three palaces and three leaves heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. Their hearts that were hanging in the air finally relaxed. Traitor. Seeing this scene, Yuichiro, who was extremely disdainful, snorted coldly. He was extremely disgusted. You idiot. The three palaces and three leaves were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. She had begged for mercy for him, but this guy was stubborn and did not appreciate it at all. Now, he even called her a traitor. The three palaces and three leaves were so angry that they gritted their teeth. That's enough, Three-Leaf-chan. He is such a person. At this moment, Sasuke Xiaoya's voice suddenly sounded. Her face was calm, and she was not surprised at all. That guy hates Dustless. What's more important is that you are stabbing him in the heart. His pride won't be able to take it. Dustless was Yuichiro's life and death enemy. The three palaces and three leaves did not care about his feelings and lowered their heads to Dustless. How could Yuichiro tolerate this? It was not surprising that they would fall out with him. It seems that because of my existence, there is a big misunderstanding between you guys. It seems that the team with good teamwork is going to be finished. Looking at the changes in their expressions, Dustless muttered to himself. In the original work, Sasuke Xiaoya's team had good teamwork. But because of him, they were going to have internal strife now. Dustless did not care about this. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him. Then, Sir Dustless, can you give me your autograph? The 3 palaces and 3 leaves blushed like a budding flower. Regardless of whether Dustless agreed or refused, she took out a pen and paper. Autograph. Hearing this, Dustless was stunned. He asked in surprise, "I am not a movie star. Why do you want my autograph? Even to vampires, I am just a butcher." "Oh, it seems that you don't know yet." Sasuke Xiaoya looked into Dustless's eyes and said, "You are a famous big shot. You have a lot of fans, especially many women who regard you as their dream lover." Hearing this, Dustless did not know whether to cry or laugh. Immediately, he stared at the 3 palaces and 3 leaves who were looking forward to his autograph. Without wasting any time, he picked up the pen and wrote down his name. "You are good-looking, but your handwriting is too ugly." Sasuke Xiaoya complained about the crooked handwriting. "Well, this is not what I am good at." Dustless did not care, but the 3 palaces and 3 leaves kept Dustless's autograph like it was a treasure. She made a standard 90-degree bow. "Thank you." In the human world, Dustless was a well-known big shot. Wherever he went, he was invincible. He was known as the strongest human. In these years of battles, he had built up a lot of prestige. Therefore, he had a lot of fans, and the 3 palaces and 3 leaves happened to be one of them. This bastard, where does his charm come from? On the other side, Hyakkuya Yuichiro was complaining. He looked at the 3 palaces and 3 leaves and said indignantly, "This woman looks smart. Who knew that she is the type with big boobs but no brain?" P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 gifts plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2386. Hyakkuya Yuichiro was extremely angry. It wasn't that he was jealous of Wu Qin. Both of them already didn't like each other. Especially Wu Qin, no matter how he looked at him, he was an eyesore. His stinky face made him feel stifled. Hyakkuya Yuichiro's friends, Jun Yuichiro and Zayina Yuichiro, were his hardcore supporters. Naturally, both of them supported Hyakkuya Yuichiro without hesitation. "I still have something to do. I'll leave first. The war with the vampires will be very dangerous." Dustless smiled and rubbed Zayina Yuichiro's head. He still had to deal with the second ancestor, Saito. He didn't have time to waste with this group of brats. Wait. However, there were always some brats who thought they were infallible blocking Dustless. Hyakkuya Yuichiro warned coldly, "You dared to injure Michael and leave so casually. Do you think it's appropriate?" "You're asking me if it's appropriate. Don't you think this question is too redundant?" Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but sneer. He snorted and said, "He's a vampire, and I'm a human. I'm already merciful for not killing him. You still ask me if it's appropriate? This question is too idiotic. When humans and vampires meet, it's a matter of life and death." Now, Hyakkuya Yuichiro asked him if it's appropriate. "It's ridiculous. Dustless didn't kill the kid and let him live. It's a great mercy. You should leave something for me too." Without saying anything, Hyakkuya Yuichiro took a few pills and swallowed them. Many people saw this scene and were stunned. They were so shocked that they didn't know what to do. "Are you crazy, Yuichiro?" After a while, Jun Yuichiro and Zayina Yuichiro raised their voices and looked nervously at the crazy Hyakkuya Yuichiro. Let alone them, even Mia, and Zayina Yuichiro were surprised. The pills that Hyakkuya Yuichiro took were specially developed. 1 pill could increase his strength. 2 pills would put his life on the line. TSK, it seems that this guy's hatred for me is deeper than vampires. Really, you only took care of Hyakkuya Michael and didn't kill him. It's not like you're targeting yourself. Do you have to be so desperate? Dustless scratched his head. Because of Haikuya Michael, Haikuya Yuichiro hated him. His ferocious eyes as if he wanted to kill Dustless. Ao 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 ao. At the same time, a strange roar came out of Yuichiro Haikuya's mouth. It was deafening, and there was a substantial shockwave, which caught everyone off guard and forced them to retreat. Enzayini Yuichiro, Yuichiro and Zayini Yuichiro, and then A and 1 were sent to the ground in a sorry state. What the hell is that thing? Is he possessed by a demon? Looking up, everyone exclaimed one after another. They looked absent-mindedly at the scarlet-eyed Yuichiro, and all of them couldn't help but suck in a few mouthfuls of cold air. At this moment, Yuichiro was completely out of the human category. Chapter 2387. What a powerful monster. What the hell is that thing? Seeing Haikuya Yuichiro go berserk, many people felt a chill down their spines. He looked like a demon in human skin. His insides had been taken over by the devil. How could a mere human face the demonized Haikuya Yuichiro? Seraph of End. An angel that can end everything. What a low-class name. End everything. Even if you overestimate yourself, you should know when to stop. Dustless's words were filled with disdain. He did not take Haikuya Yuichiro seriously at all. Ha ha ha. I don't care what it is. As long as it can kill Dustless, I will feel better. After all, this kid is part of Red Lotus's Moon Demon group. It must be related to him. Dark Twilight remained calm and composed. His true relationship with IK's Red Lotus was one of cooperation. Even so, he was inwardly furious. To think that IK's Red Lotus would conduct such a terrifying experiment behind his back. Was it Twilight himself? Xiaoya, you guys back off. I am the only one in this game. Dustless's expression was calm. He took a few steps forward leisurely while facing the raging wind. Such a powerful monster, is my teammate. Mia held the ghost curse weapon tightly. Her gaze toward Haikuya Yuichiro changed. There was fear and disbelief in her eyes. She seemed to be shocked by Haikuya Yuichiro's strength. There's no need to be envious. Although this guy is powerful, this kind of strength is dangerous and fatal. Moreover, it doesn't belong to him. In the end, he's just borrowing it. In the end, this guy is just a test subject. This is the tragedy of a chess piece. Dustless looked at the dissatisfied girl and explained calmly. He was not afraid of Haikuya Yuichiro's scarlet eyes. He did not even frown. Test subject. Why haven't I heard of such an experiment? The others did not seem to care about this question. Only Xiaoya Mia, who was a member of the Dark Twilight family, narrowed her eyes. As a member of the Dark Twilight family, she was considered a high-ranking person. She knew about some experiments. However, she had never heard of this experiment. You'll have to ask IK's Red Lotus about that. She was the one who brought Yuichiro back. Dustless shrugged and said unhurriedly, I remember telling you a long time ago that you shouldn't trust anyone because they won't hesitate to deceive you. Ao. The crazed Yuichiro seemed to understand Dustless's words. He immediately roared angrily, as if he was extremely dissatisfied with Dustless speaking ill of Red Lotus. Swish. 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 In the blink of an eye, Yuichiro moved. He gently stepped out, and the ground cracked. It was just a step, but it gave people the illusion that he had crossed hundreds of meters. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Dustless, and the dangerous Tachi fell from the sky. It's over, it's over, it's over. Many people shook their heads and sighed when they saw this scene. They could not bear to look at Dustless. It was as if they did not want to see the only general of the ghost army fall. For everyone, the current Yuichiro was too abnormal. He could be said to be invincible. Dustless was also very strong, but he would definitely be finished in the face of such a monster. He's very strong. Looking up at the blade that was coming for his head, Dustless pursed his lips and smiled. He casually raised a finger. Clang clang clang. This small finger was like an indestructible diamond. When the sword came down, there was no reaction at all. It was like two pieces of steel colliding with each other. There was only a slight boom. Then, under the gaze of countless people, Dustless caught the terrifying attack with just one finger. What? This is the Seraph of the End. His strength is too weak. I was looking forward to it. Noticing that there was no reaction from his hand, not even a trace of pain, Dustless said disappointedly, "You have such a strong momentum, but the power is so weak. The so-called thunder is loud but the rain is small. Is it referring to people like you? This is a real monster." Seeing this scene, the surrounding Ghost Army soldiers were shocked. They looked at Dustless in horror. Was that finger made of steel? No, logically speaking, even if it was made of steel, it should be broken into two pieces in the face of Yuichiro's ferocious attack, right? However, Dustless stopped the invincible blade with just one finger. It gave people the illusion that he caught a child's fist with his bare hand. It was effortless. Gulp. Heine's Hongren, who knew the inside story, almost bit her tongue off when she saw Dustless stopping the berserk Yuichiro's attack with just one finger. She was different from the Twilight people. She knew what Yuichiro's current state meant. He could even kill a noble vampire easily. The powerful attack of such a ferocious monster was blocked by a single finger. Was this a dream? Everyone felt like they were dreaming. Berserk Yuichiro also felt a great sense of humiliation. He immediately roared towards the sky, and the baleful aura around him increased to a terrifying level. The strangest thing was that some white crystals flowed out from Yuichiro's body. What is this? Everyone was stunned. They looked at the floating crystals in the sky and couldn't help but grab them out of curiosity. They subconsciously put them into their mouths and tasted a bitter and salty taste. It looks like the king of salt. Dustless was surprised. Looking at Yuichiro, he guessed that this kid was really angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Chapter 2389. Monster, monster, monster. Seeing that Dustless had recovered in the blink of an eye, everyone started to curse. This was too much. Vampires died after being stabbed by a ghost curse weapon. Yuichiro was stabbed by a blade. Needless to say, even if he didn't die, he would still be injured. However, Dustless was beaten into a beehive. In the end, he was safe and sound. His white face was filled with fatality. This was too much of a blow. Yuichiro, who had gone berserk, seemed to be frightened. He roared at Dustless angrily, as if venting his unwillingness and hostility. "Brat, what are you unhappy about?" Dustless's handsome face suddenly became gloomy. He said in a gloomy tone, "In the past years, do you know what I have experienced? My strength has reached this level. Do you think I got it empty-handed? Compared to you who borrowed the strength of others, I have spent hundreds of years to reach this level. Do you know what kind of effort I have put in?" Clang clang clang. While speaking, Dustless unsheathed the Ajuro Amuro in his hand. The slender grass-green blade emitted a cold air. The surrounding air instantly became cold. This saber's power, these few years when Dustless controlled it, its power was unleashed to the extreme by him. Repent. Dustless raised the Ajuro Amuro expressionlessly and slashed down. Boom boom boom. A huge black slash swept out from the tip of the Ajuro Amuro. It split the ground in half and went straight for Yuichiro. Ah! Yuichiro felt a sense of danger. His scarlet eyes flashed with a trace of human-like fear. Perhaps he felt the power of this attack. He subconsciously took a step back. It seems that even the Seraph of Termination can't stop this guy. Ji Murin and Hines Hanran's expression changed greatly. They had overestimated Dustless's strength. They had treated him as a godlike opponent. But now, it seemed that they had greatly underestimated this opponent. The enemy was beyond godlike. Even the Seraph of Termination couldn't handle it. Pucci. The black slash penetrated Yuichiro's body and tore him apart. Although this kid's strength was average, he was able to escape with the wind under his feet. It was as if he was possessed by a god. At the critical moment, he managed to avoid the attack of the black energy tide. But even so, Yuichiro was still seriously injured. The black branches on his back were all broken. The moment the slash hit him, it turned into thousands of sharp blades that washed over his body. His whole body was riddled with holes, and there were horrifying wounds all over. TSK. You're really lucky. Dustless was amazed, looking at Yuichiro's eyes full of ridicule. It turns out that a beast that has lost its consciousness, in the face of life and death, will also be afraid. Immediately after, Dustless took a step forward. Swish. Swish. Then aren't you going to finish him off? This guy coming back from the dead is a huge threat to you, right? 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves suddenly ran over and said with admiration, I am your fan. If you let me do it, I will definitely kill this guy. Ah. No way, am I really that charming? Staring at 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves who were almost infatuated with him, Dustless rubbed the girl's head and asked, You heard just now, right? This guy is our companion and also part of the Emperor Ghost Army. If you kill him, aren't you afraid of being punished? What's so great about that? Unexpectedly, 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves just snorted disdainfully. Her eyes were shining as she looked at Dustless as if she had seen delicious food. She licked her thin lips and said with a smile, You are the general of the Emperor Ghost Army. If Lord Dustless says a word, I will be fine. Dustless was speechless when he heard this. Were the girls nowadays so cunning? So she had such a plan. I appreciate your kindness. Unexpectedly, Dustless just waved his hand gently, and his face suddenly became cold. Do you think it is a good thing that the guy is alive? 3-Leaf-chan, you are too narrow-minded. Don't forget, this is a cruel world where humans eat humans. But vampires are the biggest enemy of humans. Remember, humans eat humans too. Humans eat humans too. Hearing Dustless's words, 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves were obviously stunned. She looked at Dustless with empty eyes, not understanding what he meant. Could it be? But soon Xiaoya's beautiful eyes flashed. She subconsciously looked at the Twilight Commander and suddenly understood something. All troops, attack. Capture Haikuya Yuichiro. Kill anyone who blocks the way. The Twilight Commander's cold voice suddenly sounded. Turning around, he came with a large number of Emperor Ghost Army and surrounded Haikuya Yuichiro. See, I don't need to say anything. The people who will clean up the mess are here. Dustless said leisurely. Of course, he understood the Twilight Commander's plan and purpose. How could such a powerful weapon fall into the hands of others? He must control it. In addition, the Twilight Commander had other ideas. Wouldn't Haikuya Yuichiro be the best test subject? Thinking of this, the Twilight Commander's heart suddenly became clear as if he had eaten honey. Ha 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 ha. The world is in front of us. It was as if he could see the invincible stance of sweeping through the world in the future. The people of the Twilight tribe couldn't help but burst out laughing. Soon Xiaoya saw this scene, but her beautiful eyes dimmed. The Soon family was such a cold family. There was only scheming and power. This is getting more and more interesting. You two, slowly bite each other. There is still a long time. Don't bite each other to death in a hurry. It won't be nice. Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. Haikuya Yuichiro was the trump card of Ike's Akatsuki. How could she swallow it when he was snatched away? Obviously not. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Chapter 2391. Losing Haikuya Yuichiro would be a huge loss for Ike's Red Lotus. After all, he was her only trump card. It was too important and had an extraordinary significance. Let's go back. After the matter was settled, Dustless turned around and left leisurely. The Emperor Ghost Army also retreated. Even Moo Moo, his archenemy, was like a rat crossing the street, decisively hiding. This kid had been tricked by Dustless many times and had become much smarter. Right, don't go out casually for the time being. The storm is coming, staring at the distant horizon, Wu Qin said frankly and confidently. Then, his body gradually faded and his back gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Understood. Sasuke, Xiaoya, Mia glanced at each other and didn't ask anything. They only nodded slightly. Night fell, and the sky gradually darkened. A bone-chilling wind swept across the vast land, blowing sand everywhere. It was so strong that people couldn't open their eyes. One could also faintly hear ghostly cries and howls. It was especially oppressive. This city that had been through countless wars had been wiped out by the flames of war. Ever since the destruction of mankind, no one cared about it for a long time. After going through all kinds of hardships, it still managed to hold on until now. However, it was greatly different recently. Ghostly cries and howls could be heard from time to time, as if it had really reached the end of its road. Shio, shio, shio. The night was dark and the wind was strong. It was the time for murder and arson. A black shadow shuttled through the night. This person's body was emitting a clear cold light. His body was as light as a cicada's wings. He quietly moved forward in the dark without making any movements. Plop, when this black shadow landed, it was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. There was no trace of water on his clothes. He was as elegant as the wind and abnormally vigorous. Yuichiro, I'll definitely avenge you. This black figure had a head of golden hair, and under the hazy moonlight, its beautiful azure eyes were even more dazzling as gemstones. Looking carefully, this person was actually Haikuya Michael. Hearing that Haikuya Yuichiro was heavily injured by Dustless and had entered the realm of life and death, Haikuya Michael was furious. He immediately rushed over without caring about anything. His destination was Dustless's temporary residence. He wanted him to pay back 100-fold. Really, what is the meaning of this? Inside the dimly lit tent, this was where Dustless temporarily rested. Although it was very simple, as the only general of the Emperor Ghost Army, the treatment that Dustless enjoyed was naturally not something that others could enjoy. It was very complete. However, what made him speechless was that just as he was about to fall asleep, two uninvited guests came, Yan Xiaoya and the 3 palaces and 3 leaves. You're not young anymore. No one would disturb him and he wouldn't be annoyed. It took a while for the 2 women to wash up, so Dustless left alone. As for his own tent, there was nothing to worry about. Even if he gave the people of Dusk and his men 10 lives, they wouldn't dare to break in at will. He knew what the consequences were. Whoosh! Under the night sky, the stars twinkled, and looking at the sky, the moonlight was beautiful. The only flaw was that the environment was a bit desolate. Sitting alone in the ruins, Dustless's eyes were hollow. That guy, when is Saito coming? Dustless bowed his head and sighed. His words were full of impatience. He knew that Saito was a scheming person. It was really difficult to lure him out. Suddenly feeling a chill locking on him, Dustless frowned and turned his head to look. Then his observation hockey spread out, and the wind and grass within a few hundred meters were all seen. Yo, why are you not afraid of death? Are you itching for a fight again? Wu-Chen rubbed his head speechlessly. He raised his eyes and looked into the distance, looking at the creeping black figure. You brat, are you here to be beaten? No, you're here to die, right? Even in the dark night, Dustless saw the identity of this person, 100 Knights Michael. Well, it's best if you are willing to come out and die alone. Being exposed by Dustless, 100 Knights Michael was no longer pretentious and didn't bother to hide. He jumped out directly from the dark ruins, holding his sword tightly in both hands and locking on Dustless. His eagle-like eyes were dotted with a dangerous chill, and the threatening sight made people afraid to look at him. It was extremely dangerous. Your eyes are good. No wonder you dare to retaliate against me. It turns out that your strength is not strong. Dustless nodded slightly. Even if he didn't fight for the time being, he could see from his eyes that the firm and beautiful eyes were more determined than before, without the slightest fear. But with all due respect, I have never been a good talker. You are still here to die. Dustless said straightforwardly, and his contemptuous eyes were full of contempt. It's you who deserves to die. 100 Knights Michael's eyes shot a fierce light, and his feet stepped on the ground forcefully, turning into a streamer moving forward. It was difficult for ordinary human eyes to catch him. Since he dared to provoke Dustless, 100 Knights Michael naturally had enough confidence, or at least a little confidence, otherwise, he wouldn't have come to die. Be sure to kill this guy. I can't let him continue to bully Yum. 100 Knights Michael secretly swore in his heart, and the big sword shrouded in cold light slashed towards Dustless's head. Buzz buzz buzz. It was also at this moment that countless ripples appeared in the void, as if a door had been opened, and countless divine weapons shot out from it. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Like a torrential downpour, they pounced on Yuichiro with unstoppable momentum. Oh no! Yuichiro Hayakuya's pupils suddenly constricted as he sensed an unprecedented sense of danger. Without any hesitation, he immediately retreated. Pft! 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 Yuichiro Hayakuya's limbs and bones were instantly pierced by all kinds of sharp weapons, leaving behind horrifying bloody holes the size of bowls. Blood instantly gushed out. Kacha! Following an ear-piercing sound, Yuichiro's face instantly turned ferocious, and the pain caused his entire face to twitch non-stop. Imagine how horrifying it would be to be pierced by hundreds of weapons and have one's body riddled with holes like a beehive. At this moment, the damaged skin began to heal slowly. Although these weapons were powerful, they were not cursed weapons, so they could not kill Yuichiro Hayakuya. But in fact, having an immortal body and eternal youth wasn't a good thing sometimes, such as this special situation. As the weapons were pierced into his body and he couldn't pull them out, his limbs were nailed and couldn't move at all. Although his wounds had healed, they were still difficult to heal completely. The various weapons occupied his wounds and tortured him to the point that his handsome face looked as though he was possessed by a devil. Oh, I'm really sorry for not holding back. Dustless said with an apologetic tone, but his face was filled with a mocking smile. But your twisted face is really pleasing to the eye. Kill me if you dare. Yuichiro Haikuya yelled angrily. His deafening roar was like an enraged tiger that was overflowing with anger. Brat! Dustless suddenly flashed and instantly appeared beside Yuichiro Haikuya. Yuichiro Haikuya didn't even have time to react as he swung his sword and thrust it forward. Pfft! A cold light flashed by and severed Yuichiro Haikuya's neck. A fountain of blood instantly spurted out from his severed neck. But even so, Yuichiro Haikuya was still alive due to the vampire's strong physique. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2394. Sometimes, living meant more pain. Drip, 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 scarlet blood kept dripping, dyeing the ground into blood-colored plum blossoms. Yuichiro Haikuya's body was stabbed with all kinds of sharp weapons. In a short period of time, all the blood in his body was drained. His huge body was left with a shriveled body. It was extremely terrifying. Oh whoa, oh whoa. Even so, Yuichiro Haikuya's madness didn't diminish. He gritted his teeth and let out a strange sound. It was as though he would only be satisfied after tearing Dustless into pieces. Are you still not satisfied? Dustless lowered his head to examine the ferocious youth. His bored expression relaxed slightly as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a smirk that was filled with interest. I like to treat those arrogant people, such as people like you who are unafraid of death. Dustless's mouth, which was redder than a woman's, opened slightly and said, Do you know? There's no pleasure in using force to trample on a person's heart. However, shattering their inner perseverance is the greatest pleasure. Towards the end, Dustless's pale lips once again hung a smile. It was a flirtatious smile that left one in a daze. However, when it landed in Yuichiro Haikuya's eyes, his heart immediately turned heavy. Brat, look into my eyes. Dustless's ethereal voice invaded the earpiece once again. Upon hearing this, Yuichiro Haikuya immediately cast his gaze over. His gorgeous gem-like eyes reflected a pair of extremely ominous eyes. The demonic eyes emitted a dark red color, filled with all kinds of ominous negative emotions. Dustless only looked at Yuichiro Haikuya quietly, but for some reason, he felt a sense of panic. It was even worse than killing him. Buzz, 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 in his eye sockets, ripples splashed out like water ripples. They were untraceable and extremely weak, to the point of being negligible. However, it was also this fleeting glance that caused Yuichiro Haikuya's deep eyes to turn empty. They lost their previous brightness and turned gray. It was as though his consciousness had been devoured by some monster, leaving him in a daze. Tsukimi. These two cryptic words shattered Yuichiro Haikuya's consciousness. With a plop sound, he fell to the ground, and then his thoughts were pulled into another world of dead silence. Where is this? Yuichiro's face suddenly shrank. After seeing this strange world, his expression suddenly changed. There was an intense uneasiness, and he felt an unprecedented fear. This desolate world was deathly silent, making people feel oppressed. Looking around, within a radius of 1,000 meters, it was a land of death. There were no signs of life. What surprised Yuichiro the most was that he was currently tied to the cross, and all the serious injuries on his body had disappeared. He was safe and sound. How could he not be surprised that he had recovered after being stabbed with over 100 weapons? Could this be the underworld? Yuichiro Haikuya muttered to himself. He felt a chill down his spine, especially when he saw the scarlet cross on his back. It seemed to have devoured many lives, which made him feel deeply uneasy and irritated. No matter what kind of creature it was, they would always be fearful of the unknown. Tsk tisk, thank me. Dustless's ghostly voice suddenly sounded with a teasing tone. Of course, healing you is only to make it easier for me to torture you. It won't be fun if you die midway. After all, you are a tool for me to amuse myself. As soon as he said that, the faint smile on Dustless's lips turned even more terrifying. It made one shudder. What are you trying to do? Staring at the strange Dustless, Michael's firm heart was in chaos. Although it wasn't to the extent of collapsing, it was already wavering. In such a strange world, Dustless walked through the air step by step. He was like a high and mighty god. His indifferent and dominating eyes made people's willpower slowly disintegrate. It's very simple. Dustless took a step forward hundreds of meters and instantly appeared in front of Michael. He held a sharp dagger in his hand and stabbed it into Michael's abdomen. His body, which was in perfect condition, was immediately torn apart. With a "kacha" sound, even his bones were crushed. The horrifying bloody hole made one's scalp tingle. Ah! You bastard, kill me if you have the guts. This stab seemed to have really hurt Michael. He roared madly at Dustless like an exposed lion with his golden hair fluttering wildly. Ah, how scary. Dustless smiled faintly. Immediately after, he lifted the dagger and stabbed again. Another bloody hole appeared in Michael's abdomen. He was in so much pain that he almost crushed his teeth. His ferocious gaze locked onto Dustless as though it was the only way to reduce the pain. Don't be anxious. Take your time. The instant Dustless's calm voice sounded, Michael's body recovered once again. It was as though everything that happened just now was just an illusion. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2395. Dustless's elegant and handsome face was filled with indifference, and his eyes were tranquil and serene. Upon hearing Michael's horrifying screams, he didn't feel the slightest bit of discomfort. Instead, he was very relaxed. Those who didn't know would think that his humanity had been obliterated. Even vampires would have a drastic change in expression upon hearing his painful screams. Killing you would be letting you off too easily. Although it's best that I kill you, the feeling of making you regret living in this world has only just begun. You need to slowly experience it. I will try my best to be gentle and not let you die too early. Dustless blurted out such horrifying words in a casual manner, making one feel uncomfortable all over. Slowly experience it. I'm about to begin. Dustless said indifferently, and immediately after, he exited the Tsukimi world. The moment he retreated, countless figures with swords appeared and began to carry out all sorts of cruel punishments on 100 Knights Mygar. His body was continuously pierced, and there were terrifying knife wounds everywhere. 100 Knights Michael's miserable cries did not stop, and this scene would continue for 24 hours. Life is really as lonely as snow. In the outside world, Dustless looked up at the bright night sky and couldn't help but shake his head gently. He finally understood the meaning of being too high and lonely. Sometimes, being too invincible was also a kind of loneliness, and sweeping the world was also a kind of helplessness. At the same time, Michael also regained consciousness. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He looked up at Dustless a few times, and then a mouthful of scarlet blood burst out of his mouth as though his soul had been sucked out. His complexion became even more dispirited, and he was so weak that he looked like a bag of bones. TSK. You're already in this state, yet you're still alive. Kid, your perseverance isn't bad. You can take a beating. After taking a few more glances at Michael, Dustless revealed a smile on his face. The golden-haired youth didn't say anything. His cold eyes were embellished with a cold light, and his oily green eyes made people shudder. Upon closer inspection, his entire body was riddled with holes. There were bloody holes everywhere, and his skin and flesh were lacerated. Although he had just been repaired, that was only in the Tsukuyomi world. It was ultimately a dream. Even after 24 hours, the injuries in the real world still couldn't be repaired. I'm really curious. What kind of trend has made you persist until now? Dustless looked at Hyakkuya Michael with interest, then he smiled and said, Is it because of that kid? I mean, Hyakkuya Yuichiro, if I kill him, you won't be willing to die. After all, you still have to take revenge. You dare to have ideas about Jewel, I will definitely tear you into pieces. These few words touched 100 Knights Michael's bottom line, and he immediately roared with a sinister expression. Idiot! The corner of Dustless's mouth raised slightly, and a smile bloomed. His words were full of contempt and disdain. You are just a lab rat, yet you still want to open your mouth and ask for happiness. Don't you think your hope is too slim? A person's life is like a flash in the pan, only a few decades. Although you are a vampire and your life is relatively longer, but who asked you to be unlucky and meet me in the end? TSK. You are really unlucky. However, I am a kind person. In order to let you know the meaning of your death, I might as well tell you the meaning of your and Hyakkuya Yuichiro's life. As if he was really interested, Dustless showed a rare serious face, and it was quite serious. What do you mean? Tell me clearly. Hyakkuya Yuichiro's eyes were sunken, and all the blood in his body flowed out. His body was shriveled. Vampires were a rather special race. In the case of extreme blood loss, although they wouldn't die, they would degenerate into ghosts. You don't even know this. I thought you would have improved a little after following Freed for a few years, but the result is disappointing. Dustless lowered his gaze slightly, and Hyakkuya Yuichiro entered his sight. He was in a very bad state, and his spirit was extremely weak. You and Hyakkuya Yuichiro are both experimental subjects for the Ends Blazing Angel. The only difference is that Hyakkuya Yuichiro is very successful, but you seem to be a failure. Dustless said casually, the reason why I kept you alive is because I wanted to see how powerful the Ends Blazing Angel is. Speaking until here, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Unfortunately, I had a strong interest in that thing at the beginning, but after witnessing Hyakkuya Yuichiro's strength after going berserk, to be honest, I have completely lost interest in you. You bastard! Hearing this, Hyakkuya Michael glared at Dustless, and his eyes were spitting fire. He wanted to melt Dustless. Still staring at me. If you want to die so much, then I will fulfill your wish. Dustless's pupils suddenly blinked, and the seemingly casual energy ripples splashed gently, but Hyakkuya Michael was instantly in big trouble. Kamui. The void around Mikao was distorted, and many holes appeared. These were all distorted by the Sharingan. In the blink of an eye, Mikao's body was devoured, and his body was torn beyond recognition. A good person was torn apart like a piece of cloth. What an eyesore. Dustless looked down at the big pool of blood, and then his eyes blinked again. Amaterasu. A pitch-black fire descended without any warning, swallowing Hyakkuya Michael's body fragments like a whale, and instantly turned into ashes. Even the ground was burned by the black flames, and cracks appeared. From now on, it also means that Hyakkuya Michael has completely fallen, and not even his corpse was left behind. The method used was extremely cruel, and if Hyakkuya Yuichiro knew the truth, he would definitely be angered to death. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2396. After all, Hyakkuya Yuichiro and Hyakkuya Michael had an extraordinary relationship. If he knew that Hyakkuya Michael was chopped into pieces by Dustless, his anger would erupt like a waterfall. Without a doubt, when that happened, Dustless would face the most concentrated hail of bullets. Those two little girls should be done by now. Women are really troublesome. Dustless suddenly raised his head to look at the void. He could not help but shake his head and sigh helplessly. No matter what kind of woman, they would pay great attention to their appearance. When he returned, the 3 palaces, 3 Leaves and Sasuke Xiaoya would most likely be gorgeously dressed. What a waste of time. Hand him over. In the deathly silent laboratory, the only sound that could be heard was the voice filled with endless rage. Looking at the source of the voice, who else could it be other than Ike's Hongren? What kind of attitude is this, Hongren? Remember this clearly. You are just the eldest son of a branch family. The Twilight person frowned deeply. At the same time, his tone was extremely unfriendly. You still dare to cause trouble for me? Explain to me where Haikuya Yuichiro got this monster. Kuei detected the reaction of the Seraph of Termination from his body. The Twilight person practically roared out the last sentence. Being deceived by Ike's Hongren, he was especially angry. The two of them were in a cooperative relationship. They researched and developed the Seraph of Termination together. The equipment was Jun Tsukasa's sister. But now, they suddenly detected the reaction of the Seraph of Termination from Haikuya Yuichiro's body. How could the Twilight person not be angry? It was obvious that Ike's Honglian was toying with him, feigning compliance but opposing him in secret. Cut the crap. Hand him over to me. Ike's Red Lotus said sternly as she glared at the Dusk people with a ferocious gaze. Everything could be discussed and everything could be settled from the very beginning. However, this was an exception. Yamatsuya Yuichiro was his only trump card to rise to power. In this chaotic world where order had collapsed, what capital did humans rely on to survive? Other than superior strength, what else did they have? Moreover, Ike's Hongren was an eagle that wanted to soar in the sky. Even if he was not strong enough, he still wanted to fight for hegemony in the blue sky and find a sky that belonged to him. Shut up. However, Ji-mu clearly had no intention of negotiating. He sneered, Honglien, you still dare to question me? Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? I was wondering why you thought so highly of that brat. So it turns out he's one of the remnants of the 100 Knight Academy. Before the world was destroyed, the 100 Knight Court was Japan's largest incantation organization. Their strength had once suppressed the Imperial Ghost Army, but good times did not last long. In the end, they could not escape destruction, and the main culprit was the vampires led by Krolu. Just in case. Heine's Hong Lotus knew that she was in the wrong and her confidence was clearly lacking. Even so, she maintained a solemn expression and emphasized that she was thinking for the future. Bullshit. Who would have thought that Ji-mu would not appreciate his kindness? He only glared at him and rudely interrupted him. He did not even care about his status as he angrily roared, it is indeed a precaution. However, this precaution is to deal with our Ji clan. Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? Wasn't it for the sake of fighting for the world in the future? You still have the audacity to say that it was to deal with Dustless. How shameless. Ji-mu's face was filled with disdain. Heine's Hong Lotus could only stare at him awkwardly. After all, that was indeed his plan. Now that Ji-mu's plan was exposed, he felt somewhat guilty. Cough cough. Heine's Hong Lotus was also an old fox. Her face was as thick as a wall. The awkwardness only lasted for a moment. Then, she said, of course, Yuichiro Haikuya was only a backup plan to deal with Dustless. It was able to catch him off guard. Catch him off guard. Hearing that, Ike's Honglian pursed her lips and chuckled. The look of disdain on her face deepened. That kid did manage to catch them off guard. However, he ended up getting slapped in the face. He ended up being crippled. This sentence sounded quite funny, but the two of them were silent. Their cheeks were tight, and their expressions were solemn and depressed. They really couldn't get excited when talking about this topic. Even if the Twilight people obtained another experimental material of the terminating blazing angel, they still couldn't open their hearts. They were extremely depressed. Even the Seraph of Termination was beaten to a pulp by Dustless. What kind of strength did this brat have? From now on, that Yuichiro Haikuya belongs to me. After a moment of silence, Ji-Mu's Seraph of Termination said arrogantly. Hearing this, Heine's Hong Lotus fell silent. She lowered her head and looked at Ji-Mu's Seraph of Termination. Then, she turned around and left. He understood that his current strength was too weak. No matter if it was his strength or the strength of the Moon Demon Group, it was still the same. There was no room for negotiation with Ji-Mu's Seraph of Termination. Just you wait. I will not give up on that brat so easily. In the dark corridor, Heine's Hong Lotus turned around and subconsciously clenched her fists. Then, she left without saying a word. In fact, she felt helpless. She could only blame herself for being too weak. She was far from being as strong as Ji-Mu's Seraph of Termination. Even so, Heine's Hong Lotus would not give up just like that. She had been through a lot. She would not give up because of such a small setback. The night was long and eventually, it was gone forever. The chill and darkness of the morning sun gradually dispersed. The sky was bright and warm. Warm sunlight poured down from the 9 heavens and shone on one's body. Even the cold-blooded vampire narrowed his eyes and enjoyed this scene. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2397. The first rays of the morning sun nourished the earth. Under this light, everything was full of vitality. Although it was a cold winter day, it was unexpectedly warm. Swish! 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 A black shadow cut across the earth. The figure was like the wind and as fast as lightning. Even if it passed by, no one would notice. What about Japan? This land really makes one look forward to it. The black shadow suddenly stopped and stood on the broken ruins. He looked at the distant horizon, his young face showing some nostalgia and longing. This person had a delicate appearance and a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't very obvious, but it was definitely a smile. The first impression he gave was that he was unusually gentle and looked harmless. Especially when he was wearing a black suit, he gave off a scholarly aura and seemed very knowledgeable. Freed. How many years has it been since we last met? I really miss you. This person murmured softly. Immediately, an interesting arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. He was probably looking forward to meeting the 7th ancestor, Freed Bartley. Moreover, looking at his interested expression, he was probably an acquaintance. Swish! Swish! After standing there for a while, the black shadow turned into a flash of lightning and left. In this world, not many people knew this person. Those who knew his identity didn't even know. Even if they really knew, it was probably those old antiques who had lived for thousands of years. About a few thousand years ago, when this person was still a vampire, he had an illustrious identity. Even the 3rd ancestor, Krolutz, could only look up to him. His status was far higher than Krolu's. His identity was the 2nd ancestor, Chi Ting. Saito, this was definitely a godlike title. Other than the legendary 1st ancestor, Saito stood at the top of the vampires. When dawn arrived, Dustless and the others lazily came out of their tents. As for Xiaoya, the 3 palaces, 3 Yi, and the others, they were still sleeping soundly. As the two of them were wanted, they had spent almost the entire day avoiding the Emperor Ghost Army. They had spent a lot of energy, so it was understandable that they continued to sleep in. It's another rare sunny day. Dustless looked up at the rising sun. The warm light shone on his face, making him feel exceptionally comfortable. Yes, Lord Twilight. The honorific attracted Dustless's attention. He immediately turned his head and saw Zhongmu walking over with Sangong Kuei. Those two fellows Crowley and Freed sure are slow. They still haven't killed this cockroach yet. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He had no choice but to deal with this annoying bug himself. No wonder I kept having nightmares last night. It's bad luck. Misfortune. Hearing this, Bai Mu-ren frowned. Dustless was so powerful, who could bring him bad luck? He couldn't help but ask curiously, who is it? You're really stupid. Dustless laughed disdainfully. A jinx like you came knocking on my door so early in the morning. Isn't this bad luck? I'm even suspecting that I didn't wash my hands after going to the toilet yesterday. That's why I didn't manage to wash it off. You! Zhongmu-ren flew into a rage, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He was humiliated by Dustless in public. No matter what, he was still the lieutenant general of the Emperor Ghost Army and the eldest son of the Zhong family. How could he stand in front of his subordinates? I'm here to search for Zhong Xiaoya and the 3 palaces and 3 leaves. Zhongmu-ren rolled his eyes and instantly came up with a countermeasure. He said slowly, the 2 of them have stolen important secrets and must be captured for interrogation. So you think I'm harboring the 2 of them? Dustless casually hugged his head and said impatiently, cut the crap. Don't be polite. Tell me everything. Anyway, I'll treat it as bullsh*t. I'll reject all of them. You. Don't push your luck. I'm from the Zhong family. Zhongmu-ren's lungs were about to explode. He was so angry that his face turned red. The saber in his hand almost flew out of its sheath. Watch your tone. Sangong Kuei also glared at Dustless. Her beautiful eyes were burning with flames. She stared at him without blinking, as if she wanted to burn him up. However, Dustless didn't say anything. His face flashed with a cold light. He turned into a golden light and rushed out. In a flash, he arrived in front of Sangong Kuei. His slender white right hand gently raised and greeted her without hesitation. Slap! A resounding slap landed on Sangong Kuei's fair face, and an eye-catching palm print appeared on her face. Brat! The one who should watch his tone is you. The one who needs to figure out his identity is also you. Let me tell you, just based on what you said just now, I can totally kill you. Dustless said sternly. His words were extremely cold. There was a terrifying cold light at the corner of his eyes, which made people shudder. This guy is so arrogant. Many people saw this scene and secretly clicked their tongues. They didn't expect Dustless to be so arrogant. He didn't put Zhongmu-ren in his eyes at all. It could even be said that he was looking down on him. Hurry up and get lost. You should feel honored that I can condescend to talk to you. Dustless saw that Zhongmu-ren's subordinates were showing signs of anger. He didn't hesitate to ignite another raging fire. Of course, if you're dissatisfied with me, that's fine. You useless trash can come at me together. I'll only use one hand. No need. If I use one hand, I'll think too highly of you. I'll let you use 2 hands and 2 legs. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2398. He's too arrogant. Let's teach him a lesson. He's treating us like air. Let's teach him a lesson. Lord Ji Mu Ren is the eldest son of the Ji clan, and the Emperor Ghost Army belongs to the Ji clan. This guy doesn't know the rules at all. Cut the crap. Beat him up. Some of the Emperor Ghost Army soldiers glared at Dushless as if they were really enraged. Everyone was stamping with rage as they glared at Dushless. Of course, there were also some with ulterior motives who pretended to be angry so that they could curry favor with Ji Mu Ren. This guy doesn't put me in his eyes at all. Father is letting him do as he pleases. Ji Mu Ren's eyes were bloodshot. He clenched his fists tightly as large droplets of sweat rolled down his face. Indeed, I don't put you in my eyes. Even though Ji Mu Ren spoke softly as if he was talking to himself, Dushless, who had sharp ears, heard him clearly. He immediately mocked, "Is there a need for me to respect someone like you? Is it because you're strong or because your faction is strong? None of them. You're too weak. You don't deserve my respect." Ji Mu Ren's veins popped out when he heard that. Those words were more painful than a few slaps to his face. "You're not convinced. Come. I like to add fuel to the fire. Give me an inch and I want a mile. When I said I don't put you in my eyes, I'm not just talking about Ji Mu Ren. I want to say that I don't put anyone in my eyes. You're all trash." Wu Chen was still unmoved. His expression was as calm as the wind. His smile was so natural, so confident, and so arrogant. Is this guy stupid? The Emperor Ghost Army soldiers were speechless. Wasn't he courting death by going against the Ji clan? Yeah. Why can't this guy hold back his anger? Didn't he say that he wanted us to get rid of Ji Mu Ren and IK's Hanren? It seems like he can't hold it in anymore. The 7th ancestor, Freed, and the 13th ancestor, Crowley, watched silently from a hidden place. The one who spoke was Freed, who had a joking expression on his face. Isn't that a good thing? We don't have to do anything. Instead of fighting, I prefer to find a place to sleep and enjoy a cup of afternoon tea. Leaning lazily against the cracked wall, Crowley looked like he wanted to slack off. At the same time, he raised his head and looked at Freed. Don't you think so? Lord Freed doesn't want to. Towards the end, Crowley's voice suddenly came to a halt. This was because Freed wasn't as relaxed and calm as he had imagined. Instead, he wore a solemn expression. This solemn expression was rarely seen on Freed's face. Krolik, you're too shallow in certain matters. Freed was no longer silent. Do you know what it means if Dustless takes care of Ice's Hanren and Twilight Night? He asked. It means that we have no value. What do you think will happen to people who have no value? Maybe that guy will just kill us both, let alone help us kill Saito. Hearing Freed's words, Corey's expression changed slightly. His previous laziness disappeared, replaced by a slightly solemn expression. Indeed, that was what Freed meant. What he said wasn't an alarmist. Pass down my order. Destroy that group of humans. Crowley ordered the vampire beside him. The latter nodded slightly and seemed to have gone to organize the manpower. I'm not here to quarrel with you today. Let me search your tent. Twilight Night apparently didn't want to waste his breath. He looked at Dustless and said, Xiaoya is a traitor. The 3 mistresses and 3 leaves are also traitors. Traitors. Dustless grinned and couldn't help but sneer. I've met countless shameless people, but today, I finally met a master. Compared to you, they can't even withstand a single blow. You're the only one in the world who can distort the truth and say that your sister is a traitor. I'm just stating a fact. Please step aside. Twilight Night said expressionlessly. Ah, what a headache. Are you itching for a beating again? Let me treat it for you. Wu Chen was too lazy to talk nonsense. Without saying anything, his body flashed and turned into a flash of light that pounced out. With a shio 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 sound, Wu Chen and the others discovered that there was an additional figure in front of them. Looking down, it was surprisingly Wu Chen's familiar face. So fast. The dusky man's pupils immediately shrank. It had to be understood that this had happened in less than a second. I'd like to see what you're capable of. The Twilight Knight couldn't tolerate it any longer. He unsheathed his ghost curse equipment. Buzz! 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 The grass-green blade buzzed and golden lightning wrapped around it. Thunder Ghost was the name of the Twilight Knight's ghost curse equipment. Die! The Twilight Knight glared at Dustless. The resentment accumulated over the years exploded. He gathered all his strength in his hands and slashed at Dustless. However, in the face of this scene, Wu Chen only raised 2 fingers calmly. He's too arrogant. Twilight Knight is a lieutenant general. Reckless fool, this bastard will definitely be split in half by Lord Duskman. Many of the Emperor Ghost Army sneered. Some even applauded the Twilight Knight as if victory was already in his hands. Many of the underlings who wanted to curry favor with the Twilight Knight even shouted excitedly that the Twilight Knight would win. How boring is this? Wu Chen sighed softly. The 2 fingers that he stretched out suddenly separated. Then, he grabbed the long saber that was surrounded by lightning. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2399. Clang! 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 A crisp explosion echoed out. It was as if it contained a great magical power, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads to look, and the scene that entered their eyes made them collapse on the spot. This is too strange. How is this possible? Is a human's hand so powerful? The onlooking Emperor Ghost Army exclaimed one after another. When they looked up, they saw Wu Chen clamping the long saber between his fingers. His expression was calm, giving people the illusion that he was clamping a mosquito. Is he really that strong? Is this guy even human? Seeing Dustless's strength, the Ghost Army took a step back. F***CK, is he still human? This was simply inconceivable. He was actually able to catch a blade with his bare hands, and he didn't even blink his eyes. Also, looking at how skilled he was, it was obvious that he was a veteran. He must be used to it. Damn it. Not to mention the others, even the leader of the incident, Ji Mu, widened his eyes. His eyes were as wide as a bronze bell. His previously confident expression turned into one of shock. He even couldn't help but curse. This scene, let alone the others, even Ji Mu himself found it difficult to accept. If an ordinary person was cut by an ordinary knife, he would bleed incessantly. Ghost curse weapons were even more powerful, especially Thunder Ghost, which belonged to the Black Ghost series. A slight wave of the weapon could cause terrible consequences of destroying the body and destroying the evidence. However, Dustless was safe and sound, as if nothing had happened. However, this was only the beginning. Caw 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 caw. A crisp shattering sound suddenly rang out, and the grass-green fragments suddenly drifted down. Seeing this scene, many people widened their eyes in astonishment, and the shock in their eyes was even more obvious. This monster crushed Lord Dark Twilight's ghost curse weapon with his bare hands. Only those with good eyesight would be able to discover that the grass-green fragments floating on the ground were the fragments of the Twilight people's weapons. As for the thunderous ghost's blade, there were also many clearly visible fragments. At a glance, it was covered in cracks, and it was as messy as a spider web. You bastard! The Twilight warrior roared, his face ashen as he stared at the 2 fingers. His weapon had actually been crushed by this fellow. Was the difference between them that great? Oh. Bastard, go to hell. The dusk demon roared crazily, the grass-green blades suddenly flashed, the golden lightning swallowed Dustless in the blink of an eye, his entire body was bathed in the scouring of the lightning. This time, it should be over, right? Most people's hearts raced as they stared at Dustless, who was engulfed by the golden lightning. It was a rare sight to see a lieutenant general of the Emperor Ghost Army vs a general. You know what? We are not people from two different dimensions. Dustless gently raised his palm and looked at the golden lightning that was darting around in his palm. It was obvious that the lightning was striking him, but he didn't feel anything. It was as if he wasn't the one being attacked. There was no pain or numbness. People from two different dimensions. What do you mean? Ji Mu's tone was extremely hoarse, and his face was filled with gloom, as if he had suffered an unprecedented blow. Because, Dustless grabbed the two fingers of the Thunder Ghost and suddenly closed them, and then broke them with force. Paw! A very loud crisp sound suddenly spread out. At this moment, the minds of all the spectators were blank. The Ghost Curse weapon of the Black Ghost series was the most powerful, but what about the ending? In the eyes of Dustless, it was just an ordinary piece of porcelain. It would break with a little pinch. It was really vulnerable. You are too weak. Holding the broken blade in his hand, Dustless glanced at the Dusk Demon, and then directly threw it out. Poochie! A wisp of dangerous fluorescent light came from the front, and the Dusk Man immediately felt a chill all over his body. He immediately felt the god of death greeting him. Without thinking, he immediately used the fastest speed in his life to escape, but he was still a step too late. His chest was pierced by a broken blade, leaving a fist-sized hole. Plop! Suffering such a fatal blow, the Dusk Demon's body immediately lost its ability to escape, like a kite with a broken string, weakly falling to the ground. Lord Dusk Demon. Seeing this scene, many of the Emperor Ghost Army exclaimed, and quickly surrounded the Dusk Demon to protect him. They all looked at Dustless unkindly. Of course, a group of people who hated him were very happy to see him unlucky. After all, the Dusk Demon was ambitious and had offended many people. Get lost. Dustless did not even bother to look at this group of small fries, and said indifferently. You bastard, stop right there. Sangong Kue was indeed the most loyal subordinate of the Dusk Demon. She immediately stood in front of Dustless, with a determined face, and a determined look in her eyes only revealed two words, fearless. Don't think that I won't kill you just because you're a little prettier. Dustless opened his eyes slightly, and just glanced at Sangong Kue, and did not say anything else. Although Dustless had some relationship with the Three Palaces and Three Leaves, he would not let Sangong Kue go just for her. Of course, if she was tactful and was willing to leave, Dustless would not make things difficult for her. But at this moment, Sangong Kue had obviously chosen the wrong path. Get lost. After about a few seconds of silence, Sangong Kue still stood in front of Dustless, and impatiently walked over. You're not allowed to touch Lord Dusk Demon. Sangong Kue realized that she was ignored, and could not help but feel angry. Chapter 2400. Swish. Swish. Between his 5 fingers, a large amount of light shot out, covering the sky and covering the earth. There were too many to count, and the gorgeous luster was like a golden drizzle falling down. The whole sky was dazzling with gold and jade. Poochie. 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 The unstoppable golden light hit Sangong Kue head-on, and the light that filled the sky poured down. Her weak body was pierced with countless holes, and blood spurted out. In the blink of an eye, Sangong Kue was turned into a beehive. Seeing such a beautiful little girl being ravaged like this, it was enough to see Dustless's indifference. Pooh! After suffering such a fatal injury, Sanya-Kue instantly lost all her strength and fell to her knees weakly. Looks like your hit rate is really bad. You can't kill me. At this moment, even though the three-palace Kue was riddled with wounds, it still looked at Dustless fearlessly. Even though it was on its last breath, it refused to admit defeat. Oh. That seems to be the case. Dustless only smiled when he heard this. However, you seem to be mistaken about one thing. Dustless suddenly changed the topic and looked down at Sanjo-Kue expressionlessly. I'm sparing your life, not because I can't kill you, but because your sister and I know each other. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless took a step forward and brushed past Sangong-Kue, completely ignoring him. You, don't come over. When Bai Mu saw this, he panicked and roared hysterically, I am the successor of the Bai clan. If you kill me, my father will not let you off easily. He's the marshal of the Imperial Ghost Army. Even now, you still have such laughable thoughts. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head as he sneered, do you think that if I kill you, your father will fall out with me? He once betrothed his daughter to me. Why do you think he did that? If the sacrifice of such an ambitious pawn as yourself could buy my support, your father Tianli would gladly accept it. Furthermore, Dustless then squinted his eyes, which were full of mockery. I forgot to tell you, your father once gave me a special order. I want you to obey me. The Dusk Man's eyes shone with a cold light as he spoke without thinking. Obey you? Wu Chen glanced at Ji Mu and thought, how narcissistic is this guy? Does he think he's infallible? Isn't it? The Twilight Man raised his head as much as he could and said arrogantly, my ambition is the world, not a small Japan. Father is old, and his thinking is outdated. The future world doesn't need people like him, so, isn't it normal for you to submit to me? Pooh! Dustless couldn't help but laugh out loud. He looked sympathetically at the Dusk Man and said in a compassionate tone, then I'm afraid the answer I'm about to give you will disappoint you. Ideas are often beautiful, but reality is ruthless and cruel. Dustless decisively said, I'm sorry, the order your father gave me is to kill you. After Dustless's words fell, the whole scene was silent. Many people widened their eyes and looked at each other, especially the Dusk Man's subordinates, who were in disbelief. As the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal, Ji Tianli actually wanted to kill his own son. This was too unbelievable. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The Dusk Man was stunned for a moment before he roared. His expression changed drastically, and he shouted weakly, although father is ruthless, he won't kill me. He knows that I'm still useful, so he will never kill me. You think too highly of yourself. When I appeared, there was no meaning for your existence. Dustless was still ruthless and sarcastic. It sounds unbelievable, but the reality is like this. Dustless didn't talk nonsense. He suddenly took out a letter and threw it in front of the Dusk Man, open it and take a look. I think you should recognize your father's handwriting. There are some things that I don't need to say, your father already understands. I don't believe that father will kill me. The Twilight Tribe member snatched the envelope and read it carefully. After a few seconds, his face changed. It turned green and white, with a hint of fear and hatred. This damn old man. I've worked hard for so many years, but now he wants to burn the bridge after crossing the river and kill me. The Dusk Man tore the letter into pieces and roared unwillingly. The content was simple. It only hoped that Dustless would kill the Dusk Man. The reason was simple. The Dusk Man wanted to seize power and replace Ji Tianli as the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal. Ji Tianli, who hadn't enjoyed enough power, naturally couldn't watch his son seize it. Therefore, he had given Dustless such an order. It was just that all along, Dustless had never obeyed. Sir Dusk Man, please don't do this. Two streams of tears fell from Sangong Kuei's eyes as she looked at Dustless with hostility. You're courting death. Seeing this, Dustless's eyes turned cold and he swung his saber. Poochie. The shimmering fruit's heavenly sword of gathering clouds cut through Sangong Kuei's chest at the speed of light. Her skin was torn open and there was no time for her to react. What insane speed! By the time everyone reacted, Sangong Kuei was already lying in a pool of blood. What should we do? The Dusk Man's expression changed. Looking at Sangong Kuei, who was unwilling to die, his cold expression showed no mercy. He even scolded, "This trash can't even stall for time. Useless. It's better for trash like this to die early. Do you have the right to talk about others?" Dustless sneered. The shimmering sword of gathering clouds swept out again and went straight for the Dusk Man's head. Gotcha! The Dusk Man's head was like a fragile watermelon. It was split in half by Dustless's saber. Brain matter splattered everywhere. Chapter 2401. Seeing the death of Qianmu, the members of the Emperor Ghost Army gasped and widened their eyes in disbelief. Their shock was clear to see. The Lieutenant General of the Emperor Ghost Army, the eldest son of the Qian family, was killed without any hesitation. He didn't even give Qian Tianli any face. It's over, it's really over this time. Everyone was stunned as they stared at the cold Dustless. Their hearts trembled. Now, who else wants to try? Wu Chen's clear and cold eyes looked around and asked indifferently. His tone was extremely calm, like an ancient well without ripples. However, when it entered the ears of everyone, it was like a bolt from the blue. It scared everyone to the point that they repeatedly retreated. Their expressions were as if they had seen a ghost. Quickly run. Some of the Ghost Army couldn't stand the fear and ran away. The large group of people instantly collapsed. Truly a bunch of useless trash. Seeing this, Dustless disdainfully lowered his head and sighed. His handsome face was filled with boredom. Now you see clearly what kind of person he is. Little brat, you're still a bit immature. Many people were stunned when they heard Wu Chen's thought-provoking words. They turned their heads and saw the scene that was reflected in their eyes. Everyone was so shocked that they cried out involuntarily. Sangong Kuei, wasn't this guy dead? Why did he suddenly come back to life? Did he come back to life? Everyone's attention was focused on Sangong Kuei, who was originally dead, coming back to life. His body was still riddled with wounds, but his complexion was much better. Dead? What do these people mean? How am I dead? Sangong Kuei was confused, not understanding what these people were talking about. They have this illusion because I released an illusion on everyone just now. Dustless paused for a moment and then said with a chuckle, "It's only at this time that you can see through a person's nature." Why? You saw what Twilight Knight did just now and you still want to be loyal to him. Dustless coldly asked, "Of course, if you want to stay loyal to Jimu and want revenge, I welcome you at any time. However, this time I will really kill you. Idiot, die early and be free." Boom boom boom. A murderous aura burst out of his body and pounced on Sangong Kuei. She was already on the verge of death, but she was even more vulnerable. She was like a weak willow branch that could only go with the flow. Not anymore. After a moment of silence, Sangong Kuei suddenly shook her head. There was a trace of deep despair on her face. I have always been loyal to Lord Mu Ren. I never thought that I would end up like this. It's good that you know it's time to repent. Dustless did not waste any more words. He nodded silently and continued, "The Imperial Ghost Army is no longer suitable for you. Because of your sister, I won't make things difficult for you. Leave the Imperial Ghost Army. I can guarantee your safety. Thank you, Lord Dustless. Sangong Kue was extremely grateful. He bowed deeply to Dustless. Go, go. Dustless waved his hand and said, You're still young. Your future, swoosh swoosh swoosh. It was also in this short moment that an ear-piercing roar pierced through the void. Several deep blue rays of light poured down. Just as they were about to hit Wu Qin, these rays of light turned into ferocious white tigers, their eyes revealing a ferocious glint. Oh whoa. The majestic tiger was extremely domineering, and the oppressive roar made people retreat in fear. Is it late at night? Raising his head, he casually glanced at the giant tiger that was swallowing him. Wu Chen's deep eyes looked into the distance. A dark ink spot could be ignored, but he still found it because of his excellent eyesight, and he saw it clearly. Pfft. At the same time, the tiger that descended from the sky opened its mouth at the largest angle and swallowed Dustless with a gulp. How is this possible? Is General Dustless dead? He's a top master who crushed the Lieutenant General of the Dark Twilight Tribe. I heard that he can fight thousands of vampires alone. How could he die? Humph. So what? That guy is too arrogant. He thinks he can be arrogant after killing the Lieutenant General of the Dark Twilight Tribe. But he still has other tricks up his sleeve. Dead? What a pity. General Wu Qin might have been able to lead us to a renaissance, but he fell just like that. Sigh. Many of the Emperor Ghost Army looked at the huge blue tiger that landed on the ground and sighed. It was a pity. They thought that the future of mankind was lost, and they might have lost a chance to fight back against the vampires. Of course, there were even some who were gloating. Oh. Worms one after another. Since you all want to die, I won't grant your wish. That's too much. In the stomach of the huge blue tiger, Dustless was safe and sound. He gently stretched out his slender hand and waved it forward. A straight flash of light appeared and compressed rapidly, finally turning into a huge golden sword. Heavenly Sword of Clouds. The moment the light sword was formed, Dustless did not waste any time. He raised his hand and slashed down. A huge golden light flew out. Pfft. A huge crack appeared on the abdomen of the huge blue tiger. It was simple and easy. Gulp. Isn't that too scary? However, this scene was unbelievable in the eyes of others. They were so surprised that their jaws almost dislocated. He had been swallowed by the tiger. How could he still be alive? In the end, he even broke out of the abdomen. This was too strange. If you want to die, I'll grant your wish. It's late at night. Anyway, I'm here. A cold voice came from the abdomen of the tiger. Then, the huge body exploded with a bang, revealing Dustless, who was unscathed. His face was bright and his eyes were bright. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Groups of sharp weapons shot out at the same time. Xiao Late Night was a person with broken legs, so he couldn't move. He could only watch helplessly. Puchi. Similar to the method used to kill Yuichiro, Xiao Late Night was also pierced by countless weapons, leaving bloody holes in his body. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2403. You will not have a good ending. Xiao Late Night's eyes were wide open. His eyes were bloodshot, and his eyes, which were like copper tombs, turned blood red. His exaggerated eyes were terrifying, as if they were going to swallow Wu Qin. Still struggling on your deathbed? Dustless narrowed his eyes and flicked his slender hand. A cold light shot out from his eyes. Amaterasu. In a flash, Jean Late-Night's battered body burned with black flames. The black light looked like it came from hell. In an instant, the smell of burnt human flesh could be smelled. A cool breeze suddenly drifted past. That nauseating smell entered everyone's nostrils, causing many people to vomit uncontrollably. Kill me if you have the guts. You bastard. Jean Late-Night, who was being tortured by the Amaterasu, roared loudly. No, no, no. Dustless shook his finger and said coldly, wouldn't that be letting you off too easily? Don't think that I don't know what you are thinking. You want to scold me because you want me to kill you as soon as possible. How can there be such an easy thing in this world? I want to burn you to death slowly with the Amaterasu. Dustless's voice seemed to be filled with magic. The black fire burning on Jean Late-Night's body was immediately extinguished and became abnormally dim. But because of this, the burning speed of the flames slowed down. But when it landed on a person, it was extremely painful and torturous as it slowly burned to death. A skinny middle-aged man stood above the ruins. His eyes were as clear as spring water. This was the second primogenitor, Qi-Ting. At this moment, he was rubbing his chin and looking into the distance with a faint smile on his face. It's time to take a look. Qi-Ting's gaze moved slowly again. A huge city rose from the east and Qi-Ting looked over. The third primogenitor, Krolitsapizi, a ray of light shot out from his onyx-like eyes, giving off the feeling of a rising sun in the dark night. It was exceptionally dazzling and attracted a lot of attention. Swish! 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 Qi-Ting turned into a black shadow and sped away. His body was as light as a swan, and his every movement was natural. Even the uneven mountains were like flat plains, and his movements were exceptionally light. From this, one could see Qi-Ting's power. Even though he had stepped down for thousands of years, he hadn't regressed. In fact, he seemed to have improved. As for Qi-Ting's identity, it was rather complicated and mysterious. Not only was he the second ancestor of vampires, but he was also the person in charge of the 100 Knights cult. Even the Seraph of Termination project was related to him. It could even be said that Saito was the one who used Yuichiro and Michael as guinea pigs for experiments. Ta-ta-ta-ta, in the gloomy corridor, light footsteps could be heard. Although they were soft and almost inaudible, those with good ears could still hear them clearly. It seems like an uninvited guest has arrived. Inside the brightly lit palace, Kalulu raised his eyes that were like spring water. Ripples spread out in his eyes as he looked into the distance. He narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the figure that was walking over from the dark corridor. Seems familiar, Krolu frowned slightly. Confusion appeared in his eyes. He couldn't help but scratch his head and recall his experiences over the past thousands of years. He felt that this mysterious man in a black suit was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember who he was. Oh, don't you remember me? At the same time, Saito also walked into the lobby. He looked around, took a deep breath, and said with a smile, I smell something special, Klolu. What do you mean? Also, who are you? Don't talk to me like I'm an old friend. I'm not familiar with you. Krolu glared at him coldly and shouted in an unfriendly tone. She was on her guard. This guy must be extraordinary to be able to pass through so many defenses. Only Dustless could do this. Qi-Ting's eyes froze when he heard this. He asked in surprise, don't you remember me? We met 1,000 years ago. Have you forgotten? The man who always followed the primogenitor. Krolu's eyes narrowed when she heard Qi-Ting's words. Two people appeared in her mind. They were both the second primogenitor. One of them was Enchanting, and the other was Old G, who was also the second primogenitor. Why are you here? Your hair wasn't like this back then. Crew immediately clenched his fists as his little face twitched. It was as if he had encountered a dangerous natural enemy. His entire body felt uneasy. Even though his little face was calm and collected, it was now covered with a haze. Don't be so nervous. I'm not as scary as you think. Enchanting smiled gently. It was hard to imagine that he was the second primogenitor. He gave off a stable and reliable impression. Even so, Krolu was still nervous. She forced a smile and said, "Oh, is that so?" Then Rick Stafford. "No, that's your original name." "That's right. I'm Enchanting now." Enchanting nodded and said abruptly, "I'm no longer a vampire. Rick Stafford is my vampire name. It's only natural for me to change it. Before that, I have a question for you." Suddenly, Sato's face changed, revealing an extremely terrifying and gloomy look. "I smell a unique scent. It seems to be a human. I remember that guy's name. I think it's Wuchen. He seems to be the only general of the Emperor Ghost Army. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 2404. Thump. Hearing Sato's words, Krolu became even more nervous. She didn't know Sato's background before, but now she knew that he wasn't a friendly person. Oh. Krolu, don't be so afraid. I'm not here to cause trouble for you." Saito seemed to have seen through Krolu's fear. He smiled warmly like the sun. However, such a warm and heart-piercing smile didn't erase the shadow in Krolu's heart. Instead, it made her feel even more uncomfortable. This was the smile of a devil. "The matter between Wu Qin and me, where exactly did this fellow get the news?" Kalula's heart was filled with doubts. His crystal pupils were covered with a layer of mist. He was puzzled. Suddenly, he looked at Saito's thin figure and felt that this figure was too terrifying. It was as if no secret could be hidden from his eyes. Oh. Looking at your expression, does that mean you admit it?" Saito pursed his lips and chuckled. He rubbed his fingers in boredom and continued, "I heard that Fried had some kind of premeditated plan with him. It seems that he wants that guy to kill me. I don't understand. I don't know about the deal between them." Krolu shook her head indifferently. This time, she really didn't know. Dustless didn't tell her about the deal between him and Fried. Therefore, Krolu really didn't know about it. This was the truth. "I know you don't understand. I took the liberty to visit today because I want to see what's so special about that guy." Sato's playful expression suddenly disappeared. He said seriously, "To be able to subdue the third ancestor of the vampire queen, Krolutzapizi, and my rebellious son, Fried. To be honest, I'm a little curious about this kind of person." Saito spoke with confidence. A hint of caution flashed in his eyes. Even though he spoke calmly, he was actually quite afraid. He knew the world of vampires better than Dustless. If he wanted Krolu to listen to him, he must have the strength to crush her. Moreover, his cunning son, Fried, was flirting with Dustless. It was enough to tell that he was extraordinary. "I'm sorry, but your hopes are dashed. I know what you want from me. It's about Dustless, right?" "Actually, I don't know much about him. In fact, I don't even know as much as you do. So, you should give up," Krolu said coldly. She really didn't know Dustless. In the past few years, the number of times the two sides had met could be counted on one's fingers, not to mention understanding each other. Dustless had always been mysterious. You don't understand. Ting's eyes flashed with a cold light as soon as he finished speaking, and the elegance on his face disappeared. His expression changed faster than flipping a book. I'm just stating a fact. Since you know that he's my boss, have you ever seen a boss tell his own secrets to his subordinates? Krugeru was full of vigilance. She had already smelled a ghastly killing intent, and she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her entire body shivered uncontrollably, and she felt extremely uncomfortable. You're right, but these words aren't enough to make me leave. Ting smiled slyly, and his handsome face revealed a sinister expression. Even if you really don't know, Klolu, you're still a hostage with value. No matter what, Klolu was related to Dushless. You want to deal with me? Hearing this, Klolu was like a flood that broke through a dam, and a murderous intent spread unstoppably. Although she wasn't as strong as the second ancestor, it didn't mean that she would just sit there and wait for death. The great ancestor will never let you go. Knowing that her chances of winning were close to zero, Klolu had no choice but to use the first ancestor, the origin of vampires. However, Ting only shook his head. Are you an idiot? Your reaction is really slow. Didn't I say before that I'm now called Ting? I've abandoned my previous name, and at the same time, I've also abandoned my identity as a vampire. Do you understand? Not to mention that I'm no longer a vampire, even if I'm still the second ancestor. Do you think you can make me leave just by threatening me? What a joke. Ting couldn't help but curl his lips, and his handsome face was full of disdain. Go to hell. Seeing that the negotiation was useless, Klolu shot out, his black afterimage disappearing in the blink of an eye, rushing forward like a meteor. Poochie. The black shadow pierced through Ting, and with a cracking sound, one of Ting's arms was cut off. His sleeves were also torn off, and his black suit was very obvious. Ting's face turned ugly, and he turned to look at Klolu in surprise. After not seeing you for so many years, you've become much stronger. Looks like you've worked very hard. Most importantly, that guy taught me well. Klolu smiled in high spirits and said proudly, the second ancestor? He's worse than I thought. Ting wasn't angry when he heard that. When he heard, that guy taught me well, he immediately understood. Even though they were on opposite sides, he couldn't help but frown. You're talking about Dustless, right? TSK, it's really surprising that he can make you so much stronger. At that moment, even I didn't react in time. These words were from the bottom of his heart. When Klolu launched a sneak attack, his speed was too fast, and when he realized it, his arm was already broken. But Ting suddenly changed the topic and sneered. Klolu, no matter how well he taught you, you're still not Dustless. Ting suddenly shook his shoulder, and a clang 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 sound was heard, as if iron chains were rolling. Then, his broken arm was reattached, and it was as good as new. The most terrifying thing was that Ting's body had changed drastically, and dense iron chains shot out from his back like a spider web. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 rating plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.